Hello there. Excuse me. I might be a little under the weather. It is 5:32 p.m. on Thursday, the 7th of May, 2026, and I kid you not, ooh, that's cold. I just spent about 5 hours trying to install, shout out to my dad, trying to install, and shout out to my mom for the Vital Toolkit, trying to install a self-closing drawer slide. And man, it was crazy. Like I had not grand plans for my afternoon, but it did not involve a 5 hour like marathon. It was a marathon sprint, honestly. It was so crazy and so frustrating and so confusing because it was like these drawer slides, like, they're soft close drawer slides, and the way they work is that, you close a drawer and then there's a mechanism that catches the latch and then it closes the drawer the rest of the way so that it's like quiet and also, I don't know, it's like a luxury feature, And my dad wanted to replace the previous ones on our little trash can drawer, and they arrived today. And so when I got home from a coffee shop, I'm working hard, y'all. I noticed that they were here, and so my dad said that I could go ahead and install them. And I thought that it would be as simple as basically 12 screws. That would be the bulk of what I had to take off and then reinstall these new slides, and it was crazy. Every time I would install them on the drawers, they just wouldn't work. I could make all of the mechanisms perfectly function when I was just like playing with the actual slides themselves. But as soon as I put everything together, it just wouldn't work. And so my dad got home, shout out to my dad, I don't know, maybe 30 or 45 minutes ago, and he took a look and he noticed that the two like mounting slides that go inside the cubby that the drawer goes into as well, they were like a ½ inch off of each other, and so there was just no way that the mechanism could grab the door and pull it closed. So after much ado, which I also ended up I didn't break the soft close mechanism, but I disassembled it through pressure. That sounds like a euphemism for breaking something. But I ended up having to figure out how the self-closing mechanism actually worked, because I had gotten it into a state where the parts weren't properly working anymore, and it was a lot. I didn't get to go for a bike ride today, which is fine. By the time I was done with the drawer, I was like, dude, I've been basically planking for 5 hours, because you have to hold your core up, and it's all these awkward positions when you're doing work like that in a small confined space that's below your knees. So I'm taking the day off, but boy, did I work for it. I don't really have too much to say. Honestly, I felt a little bit fried from the effort of the drawer. But I'll go over my day for what it's worth, and the only thing that I can think of is the power of no, and that's the only real point that I want to return to here in a minute. But yeah, basically, my whole family, we left at about 9 a.m. from the house this morning, because my family, they have a cleaning service, and so those people came by, and I went out and over to White Birch Provisions, which I have not been to for quite a while, and had a nice half-calf Americano, if you know what I'm saying. I do gotta say it. I have to say that I think I have been wasting a lot of money. This could be a bit of a life hack, so listen up. I was a big fan of lattes, and I still am, but lattes are probably, in terms of the items on a cafe's menu, probably the most expensive thing that there is. And then, it only goes up from there with the upcharges, the additional features. And I've come to find recently that if you put cream in coffee, at least to my undistinguished and unrefined palate, it tastes just like a latte. And so I was like, well, dang, I saved $2 if I do that. So I went to White Birch, and I got a large Americano, put some cream in it, and I'll tell you, this guy was satisfied. Had a lot of digital Needfuls. that I wanted to tend to. Getting back to people about things. Perhaps you're one of those people. Hey, shout out to Travis, by the way. Looking forward to seeing you, my dude, at Trail Days very soon. And yeah, a very productive morning. I mean, as much as you can be productive when you don't have a job, but you do have a laptop and you are at a cafe. Just really, I went hard with my digital Needfuls. I left it all in the paint. And yeah, I did apply to a job at Google. Perhaps you've heard of it. I have a friend who works there, and there's like this huge process for properly going through referrals and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know. I listened to a podcast today. Maybe I should look up the guy's name so I can give him proper credit. Not that what he said was necessarily something that needed to be said by someone who I was waiting around to hear it from. Wow, that was a weird way of saying it. But yeah, there's a guy named Scott Galloway. And I wouldn't say that I'm a huge fan of him because he's a little brusque, a little rough around the edges. Maybe he's like a classic entrepreneurial capitalist. Like I don't even know what he's done. It's interesting. I've listened to 2 podcasts with him now. He was on Andrew Huberman, and then he was also on Diary of a CEO. And he didn't really talk much about the specifics of his history or his past, which I suppose I actually give him credit for, because what he was really talking about was just what it's like to be a man in modern society. And he's in his 60s himself. So it's from the perspective of someone who has gone through the grind, as it were, but also has come out on the other side with a desire to instill certain types of positive attributes that he sees specifically in the masculine experience of being a man. And, I identify with that. I think that there is it's an understandable reaction to men if you think about the fact that most of the atrocities and horrors and terrible, unspeakable acts historically have been perpetrated pretty much exclusively by men. Talking about statistics here, women obviously have the capability of doing horrific things, but in terms of doing them in mass, that typically has been men. And I think that that's a biological thing. There's been a whiplash effect where now the masculine traits, which I think just are part of balancing cosmic, ephemera? Is that what I'm really thinking of? Cosmic ephemera. It's the yin and the yang. There's oil and water. There are certain things that I think that men are endowed with that are specific to them, and they are balanced by what women bring to the table. And obviously these are broad strokes, and I'm not trying to say anything about specific people, but if you believe that balance is a thing, and that the yin-yang symbol means anything, then at least for our homo abstracticus interpretation of that concept, it seems that there is almost no finer display of that balance than a woman and a man. All right. And I know that what I'm saying, these are problematic things to say now, and that's kind of the point that this guy Scott was trying to address. You shouldn't be ashamed to be a man or a woman, or anything in between, whatever you want to be. The idea that you are evil from birth because of, again, a selection that was made for you that you had no say in is pretty ridiculous. If you believe in, it only makes sense in a framework where biological determinism isn't a thing, I suppose. It can only make sense if you think that there's a fanciful interpretation of reality, which I'm not saying a fanciful interpretation of reality isn't necessarily true, but in my own experience, it's not something that I've seen a lot of evidence for, and it's not something that I believe in very mightily. I think that it's better to view things as neutrally as possible, but now I feel like I'm getting into my robotic interiority. So let me have a sip of beer, recalibrate a little bit. All right, that's better. So what's my point? My point is that I enjoy I enjoy contrarians. And, I enjoy general pushback against what is conventionally considered true, because I think that while common sense is certainly like a real thing, like, the shared knowledge of life experience being something that is like, well, just spread evenly across a group of people. I guess, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm losing the thread. It doesn't really matter. The point is, like, I think that anything that makes you feel ashamed of yourself for reasons that are, like, just commonly held beliefs, those are worth examining at a minimum to see if you actually identify with the whole framework that's being presented. I suppose, my whole thing is just like, just because a bunch of people say something is true doesn't mean that it is. And that's not to say that you then dismantle everything that a society actually believes. But, coming at life with a degree of skepticism for things that don't ring true internally to yourself, so that you can kind of figure out why that bell of skepticism rings, and then kind of work your way through whether or not there's a more sensible way of understanding to your satisfaction. So, all that's to say, I applied for a job at Google today, and I think I probably will be rejected, but that's where the whole reframing of rejection comes into play, which is something that Scott Galloway talked about a fair amount. Which is just that the power in the word no, like rejection. Like, you ask a girl out on a date, she says no, fantastic. You apply for a job that maybe is a bit of a stretch based on the things that you've actually done, and you get rejected, great. Like, those are not actually negative experiences, and it's not information to disempower you. I've had a similar kind of belief in my whole idea that all data is good data, and that you get more information back from failure than you do from success, And so, I have a friend at Google who, like I said, was, at least at a certain time, willing to give me a referral, but rather than having to pester him about that or wait for a perfect quote-unquote opportunity, I just decided, I was like, well, I haven't been rejected in a while. Let's just throw in something and see if it works. I mean, it doesn't really matter. The resiliency that can be honed by knowingly approaching something as a high possibility of failure, and doing it anyway, that's something that I think is important for me to pursue, especially at this part of my life where I'm pursuing things that are not as well. It's taking the control out of my hands. Had to take a moment for decongestion. Taking the control out of my hands. A lot of the things that I have done, while they are like objectively, I don't want to say impressive, but let's just say seldomly attempted, like biking cross country and the hiking and stuff like that. Like, those are objectively difficult things, and it is impressive when someone is able to complete those things. But when a large part of your pursuits purely involves like your ability to make yourself do the thing, then your locus of control becomes very, very close at hand. And what I'm doing now takes a lot of that control out of my hands, because I can't influence a talent acquisition system, and I can't influence a recruiter, and I can't influence directly someone who might be able to give me a referral. Like, it's so all of those things for the system that I was operating in, as soon as I don't have the power in my hands, I want to make sure that I still will do the thing. Like, I should still apply for something, even if I don't have the best situation and I don't have all the control of all the bits and all the pieces. Like, leaning into no and leaning into rejection as positive things, When I was initially applying for positions, like, I don't know, 3, 6, I don't even know how many months ago, all the positions that I've applied for in the past 8 months or so, I did so pretty much knowing that, rejection was a big likelihood. And I've only had one interview in the entirety of the time that I've been trying to get a job. But, now that that's like a main top tier focus of mine, I want to make sure that I'm not getting soft on my desire to follow through with something as minimal and menial as at least just applying. Because, what's to be lost? It's like whether or not I ultimately get an interview for this position or don't, I probably will be in a very similar situation. So it is sort of irrelevant, especially if I were to catastrophize the possibility of the rejection as a severe indication of a lack of value in myself. Like, that's not helpful, And being scared of that, I don't want that to cause me to have paralysis by analysis, And I don't really think that would happen, but it's one thing to have a mindset about things, and it's quite another to actually take a specific action that will support that mindset. So all that just to say, I decided today that I would apply for a position, come what may, hell or high water, and I felt good about it. I felt good about it whether it's a yes or a no. I felt like I made a really good resume, and I feel like I wrote a really good cover letter. I think I've wondered if in the process of my job pursuits, if anyone would directly ask me if I used AI for the creation of those materials. And I do. I think it would be honestly foolish to not do that, just because, like, I don't know, again, it's like using a power tool, having power tools but preferring hand tools for a efficiency job, I think it's an important thing, if only just to prove that you know how to use the tool. And for an important thing like a job search, it just seems like a vital thing. I wouldn't want to sit at my computer for 5 hours like I did when I was trying to fix this drawer. Shout out to my dad. And just like write one resume and just obliviate my sense of self over the construction of simple sentences. It's like, I really don't care about like whether this is the perfect way to present this idea. The important thing is, like, I want to present what I have done in a way that is the most efficient way to get attention pointed at me, And so for me, the way that I use AI for job search up to this point is that I always use it for every draft beyond the first draft. Like, I have primary source material, which I usually will make by basically making an audio clip like this, and then I'll have the transcript of it, and then I can turn that into anything. I have a lot of templates for resumes and stuff like that have existed over the years, and I can speak on those things to give them more context. And it's interesting because the way that I will actually review a second draft that has AI input is, I'll read over it and I'll think about the way that it's describing what I've done and make sure that it actually still is true. It's like, I don't want it to say that I can do anything that I don't even understand what it's saying, That's a problem, because if someone asks me about like REST APIs or JSON parsing, like, I need to be able to speak on that if it's going to be in my resume, But as long as I can read through it and I can see, I can remember what I said about that thing, and then I can see how AI has basically punched it up so that it's like the best version, the best description, the most like, keyword rich presentation of what I've actually done. Like, that's the important part. So we'll see. Who knows? The cover letter was fun. I basically just walked outside and then talked about why I thought I would be good for this position for 20 minutes, and then was able to turn that into like a 5-paragraph cover letter, Again, I think it's unwise to not use these tools in this kind of pursuit, but you have to be wise about the way that you use them, And context is key. And so the more you can explain about who you are and what you've done, and just tell the story. Like, resume is really sort of like a thesis statement of your professional life, And I have personally found, although it's not necessarily been completely effective, that I can really create a compelling narrative of my experience by using AI to formalize my story. And by my story, I just literally mean by me talking about where I've been, what I've done, and the decisions and choices that I've made. So we'll see. And so I got home at like 12:30, and that was when the drawers were there, and I was all excited. I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to do a meaningful bit of work for my parents that my dad is proud of me for, and he's not even here. Shout out to my dad. He's not even here to help me, so if I can do this right, then it'll just prove my competence. And then I'll be able to do push-ups, and I'll do some pull-ups as well. And then I'll go for a bike ride, and then, come 5 o'clock, it'll be time to reflect on the fruits of my labor. I tended to the Needfuls today, and boy did I. I didn't expect it to be the way that it was, but it was what it was, and it is what it is. So, is there anything else? I don't think I have anything on my notes. I do have a funny note that says to do push-ups, but I guess we'll save that for tomorrow. That's an important thing that I've learned in my life. When you're feeling kind of like, when your idea of how you want to spend your day is interrupted by reality, they say, no plan survives contact with the enemy, and man plans, God laughs. You have an idea, or at least I wake up with a general idea of how my days might go, and then I'm confronted by the reality of the day. And the most important thing for me in terms of feeling, retaining a sense of control over the chaos of existence is feeling generally okay with the fact that something that I thought was going to happen today is going to have to be pushed to tomorrow. And there will be plenty of time tomorrow to do whatever the thing is. And in fact, there's sort of a bittersweetness to it, because that means that that's one less thing that I have to think about doing tomorrow. I will, I'm sure, take a bike ride tomorrow, and I'm sure I will do push-ups, because that'll be the first thing. It's like a FIFO kind of situation. So first in, first out. So these things have been on my list. The bike ride is something that typically just stays on my list as a thing that doesn't even need to be written down. But, tomorrow's looking good. As Peter Diamandis says, the only day better than today is tomorrow. And so with that, I'll leave it there with a classic. Shout out to my parents. Love you. Bye.